I will introduce. Good afternoon, beautiful beings of light. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle. I almost said the Crone Zone. Welcome to the Wisdom Circle with SunPsychic Jean, Pure Visionaries. Oh my God, my brain. Terry Lee and wonderful
Good
Wisdom
enough.
Seeker Joan. And I'm afraid we don't have our Terry Suzuki today. She's on holiday and more power to her. I hope she has a great time.
And then there's Priscilla and Heather.
And then there's me and Heather. So let me say welcome to the Wisdom Circle. My name is Priscilla. This is my co-host Heather, and we'd like to welcome our fellow circle members, Jean, Joan, and Terry Lee today. Our goal is to share and support and validate each other as well as others on as we follow our spiritual path. We're here to share and discuss spiritually related theories, experiences, information, and perspectives from different backgrounds and points of view. We hope to make you laugh. We hope you feel included and maybe gain some insight or perspective in whatever is happening to you on your spiritual journey. Our individual paths are unique. No two of us are the same, so please take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. And remember, this is for entertainment and spiritual purposes only. Today is about waking up to your gifts, and Heather is today's hostess. All participants' contact details are in the description of each Wisdom Circle video, as is a list of our future show dates, presenters, and subjects. So please check it out. And now we can say hi to the chat, and
Hello,
I'll turn it
everybody.
over to Heather.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to say was that we're going to be talking about waking up to your gifts. And did you want to run the? What are you
No,
going? I'll
you
put it
are.
up. Okay. So anyway, so we have waking up to our gifts, and a lot of us have gifts, and we don't even know it, and or we've come into them in different ways. But there are a lot of things that we also have in common. So let's talk about what we might have in common and what may be different. And not in the gifts themselves, but how we realize that we have them.
I
Okay.
love your box with the spiritual coming out of it. It's just perfect for today's show.
And we want to talk about what we did and ideas for others if they find that they also have gifts.
Yes.
And when I was looking through stuff, they were talking about 6 signs that you might have a spiritual gift. Uh, I've got a bump here.
A
Okay.
bumpy mouse.
So, what might you have that's a spiritual gift that indicates it? And the first one is that when you read into your dreams, in other words, sometimes when you're sleeping, your dreams are easy for you to remember. Well, those are the people who really needs to write them down. But sometimes when you're sleeping, you're getting messages then, but you don't necessarily remember it. And if you're somebody who doesn't remember your dreams, like me,
Me.
when you get a message, it's really important that you write it down right then because you know you're not going to remember it in the morning.
True
So,
story.
but that's, when you're have a regular dream. And let's see, I'm keeping up here there. You also have the kind of visions that often come true. Now, my brother, unfortunately, he's one of those that did have visions, but they were always things he couldn't do anything about, and they were accidents or they were not happy things. And he finally learned to turn his dreams off. But a lot of times, you can just be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden, I know what he's going to say next.
Oh, yeah.
And sure enough, they say exactly. I know what he's going to do next. That's maybe a vision that was coming from a dream, maybe. But you all of a sudden know he's going to do this next. And you see it, and boom, he does it. So that's another sign that you might have a gift. They're just coming true. Then they have what they call a 3 to 4 a.m. bathroom habit. And I didn't really understand that at all. So I was looking that up. Basically, she does as well. And
Oh, yeah.
you and your husband used to do it. But I will wake up somewhere between 3:30 and 4:30 for no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with her, or with anybody, you may decide, oh, okay, I woke up to go to the bathroom. But I never do have to. However, that happens all the time. And part of the reason that it happens is that between 3 and 4, the veil is thinner. So the spiritual world can go ahead and get a hold of you if they're trying to. So again, that is a sign that you may have.
Do any of you guys get messages?
I was going to ask.
I was going to say, I don't hear messages.
Yeah, I don't necessarily hear. Well, yes, actually, recently I have been hearing things. Like last night, I had to get up and write down things that I really wanted, and then this morning when I got up, I had to take care of that stuff. But that's just something that happened. Also, there's a lot of times I got to thinking back to my childhood, and I used to see this woman at the foot of my bed watching me. I think it was a ghost, but anyway, she was at the foot of the bed. And when I got to think of it, it was between 3 and 4 in the morning.
Interesting.
It was always in the middle of the night. To me, that was the middle of the night. So that makes sense. If she was coming in to see me, that's when the veil is the easiest to see. There we go. Between 3 and 4. Or you may have nightmares that keep you tossing and turning. Now, what they said about this is if the people on the other side can't get a hold of you, they can't wake you up. Sometimes they'll revert to giving you a nightmare to wake you up, to give you that message.
Well, that's rude.
Yeah, but it works. It wakes you up. So, and if you feel uneasy, then you might want to surround yourself with light, because it may not be a friend that's trying to get your attention. Okay. They were talking about putting a glass of water with salt in it, or keeping a black tourmaline ball or something to get some relief from nightmares if that was happening. And another one is that you're extremely empathetic. And I know every one of you is. But as a kid, you could feel everything that you said. I know he feels so bad. And what I have found for me is that when I know they feel that bad, it's like I have a knowing they need a hug. It's because you can feel what they're going through. They need that hug. So that's one way that you could be empathetic. And you have a very strong intuition. There was one time I was going out for an evening with a bunch of gals. We were playing some kind of dice game, like pinochle night, but it wasn't pinochle. And my mom came to my mind for some reason. She never came to my mind like that. I ended up calling her. She was by herself. She was in bed. She was in awful pain. Oh. And I asked her, do you need to go to the hospital? She actually said yes. Wow. So that tells me, yes, there's a lot of pain. So as soon as I hung up with her, I called my brother, who was living 20 minutes away. Well, he wasn't there, but his lady friend was, and she went over and got her and took her to the hospital. But nobody else had that feeling. And it turned out she had a blockage in her intestines. And if I had not called her, if they left her there all night, she probably would not have made it, because she needed to have emergency surgery. Well, so it's one of those things where you feel it, you have to act on it, because you are empathetic and you have a strong intuition. So it's a little bit of both. So list those things, you can get rid of that for a bit, because I want to ask you guys, have you ever felt any of those things through your childhood and now? Do you have those indications that you have it? Do you remember them? Why don't we just start with you, because you're right next to me.
Okay. Well, I most definitely have the 3 to 4 o'clock bathroom habit. And I always wake up and think, okay, what's the message? And I get up and go to the bathroom and go back to bed. That's pretty much it. Nightmares tossing and turning. I had a nightmare of my father chasing me that you guys probably have heard. Him chasing me down the hall in my dreams.
Hmm.
What I thought was to catch me to spank me. He was actually trying to keep me here. I was trying to leave. Every night I wanted to get out of here. I didn't like I didn't like this world and I wanted to go away. So
Hmm.
I had that. And that was a reoccurring nightmare for years, probably grade school and through junior high school even. But I found out after my father died, my husband was a psychic, and he's the one that my dad said, "No, I was trying to keep you here. I wasn't trying to spank you. It wasn't because you were being naughty. It was I wanted to keep you on this planet." So
Right.
that's how I found that out. But I had no clue as a kid, a little kid. Empathetic. Always knew I was empathetic, but I didn't know what it meant, of course. I
Mhm.
wasn't aware enough to realize that I was feeling
That was
everybody
an
else's feelings as well as my own.
Yeah, that was an adult word. We didn't worry about those.
Yeah, yeah. And intuition, I've always had strong intuitions. Oh, I've always been very intuitive, but not psychic until much later. So that's me.
Who wants to go next?
Well, I can definitely say I had recurring nightmares. I definitely wake up currently and for a long time now, wake up in the middle of the night around that, you know, that hour, that spiritual hour.
Hmm.
I am very empathetic and I have been for a very long time. And I kind of it's a double-edged sword. It's helpful for you to be empathetic because you can kind of read a situation or get a sense of what might be going on. But
Hmm.
it's also that it's detrimental because you absorb so much information. And my intuition definitely has always been quite strong. How about you, Joan?
Well, when I was little, I did have nightmares all the time, and I saw ghosts sometimes. So it was always kind of scary. And I don't know if I um, really had visions that came true, but I did, would see ghosts, and I felt the presence. Only a couple of times really actually seeing them, but yeah, that was not comfy. And so nightmares, and let's see, oh, the bathroom thing. Oh my word, yes, 3 o'clock every morning, and especially when I was working, I had to get up at 5:30. It's like, oh, you just fall back asleep, and then the alarm rings.
Has
But
that been happening for years and years and years with you guys at 3 to 4 o'clock? Yeah,
Oh
us
yeah,
too.
from childhood on up, you just wake up and go back to sleep.
For me, I don't think it happened until maybe my 40s or something like that. But I finally cured it by just getting up and meditating. Okay, I'm awake at 3, and now I don't have to get up at 5:30 for work. I'll just meditate then. And
Oh, that's
then,
smart.
yeah, and then,
That's a great
I
tool.
usually don't get back to sleep, but that's okay. It's just I'm not a big nightlife person. I'll go to bed at 9 o'clock, and then I'm up at 3.
Well, you
But
know
that's
that meditation is one of the things that they said helps you hear a message if there is one.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is a really good thing to do then.
yeah.
Mhm.
Huh.
And the veil is thinnest then, I think. So
Yeah.
I've
Mhm.
fallen out of that practice, but I need to get back into it. And the empathy, I think that was one of the reasons that I went into the career that I did. I studied journalism, but it was really hard for me to not empathize with the person I was interviewing. And you don't want to do that as a journalist. You need to tell, this is this
Yes.
side, this is this side, these are the facts. And I would just hook right into the other person. So being like in public relations and communications, where, whomever I'm interviewing, I'm trying to tell their side of the story. And I had a lot of people say, wow, people would, after I'd interview them and run a little story in, I don't know, the company newspaper or whatever, people would come up to me and ask me to write their autobiography for them to
Nice.
ghostwrite it, because it's like, no, nobody ever really understood me like that, and all that. So,
That's
and
really helpful.
I never knew what that was about, but now I think, oh yeah, that makes sense. So yeah. So it
What
can
about
be,
you, Terry Lee?
Well, definitely, I'll go right to the 4 a.m. thing. In fact, I have a thing where I call it's my 4 a.m. prayers, and
Oh.
stay awake for an hour, maybe an hour and a half sometimes. And what helps me is just I have this prayer list and I go through the list. That sort of replaced for years prior to that. I always asked the creator, why do we have to have a life review when I have one at every morning at 4 a.m.? I've been there, done that, gone over it.
Got the t-shirt.
Then when I started taking up the prayer list, then it really helped me to get my head and my heart into helping other people. And that seems to help me wind down enough to go back to sleep. Empathy as a child, and still to this day. I mean, Flicka tore me apart. I mean,
Me too.
Old Yeller, get out.
Old
I
Yeller.
cried.
Oh my God, Bambi.
Bambi's
Mom got me.
Me too.
And I love to care for people. And a couple of times people have said, well, you would have made a great nurse. I'm like, no. I could not be a nurse at all. It's just, I can help my own children when the hour is urgent, but I just feel people's pain literally. And it's kind of frightening.
Yes, I was a nurse, and it was brief because of that.
Yeah, it's like I can hold myself together long enough to get through the crisis, but after that, I'm just completely and there's nothing I can do. Yeah, it's draining, but it's also a wonderful gift in the sense that, and I find it growing lately, like I can really sense in a deep and profound way other people's emotions, like even just being in Costco and walking by a little girl with her dad, and she was trying to sell him some stuff on the shelf that she wanted, and her she looked up at him, and I was like, whoa, I could just feel her admiration and her love for her daddy, and it was just overwhelming. And that's been happening quite a bit lately. So
wow, that's interesting.
That's kind of a sign. Dreams, for years, I had dreams, and I still to this day haven't had anybody really answer why, but I had dreams where terrible catastrophes were happening, and I would have to save everybody. And they'd be like, Terry, get in there and do this or that. And I'd have to go in and save people. And I don't know where that came from. Maybe a past life. I'll have to have a talk with Robert, the Akashic Records master, so I can find out what that's about. But I did have that for years and years. Finally, they went away. And
interesting.
That's probably the most serious. I do have dreams where I do wake up and I know what has happened. And those are often teaching dreams. And I'll go, oh, well, you know what that is? That's your insecurity masking itself. And, you kind of can get into it a little bit. So I do that occasionally, but that's about it.
Wow.
So we all have some, at least some of those. Oh, yeah. A lot of us have all of them, if you think about it. Because I'm sure all of you have been in conversations where you've said, they're going to say that next. It's like deja vu. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just, I had that. It's coming. You just know it's there, So that's also part of it. But before I go into, because they say there's 5 or several steps to help awaken your hidden power. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see how it was different, because I have always felt that the family support when you're a kid will make a big difference to you as to how well or how easily your gifts develop. Now, I don't know about you. Nobody in my family, it's something you didn't talk about. Yeah. So I've been finding out for the last 2 or 3 years what the gifts were. I just thought everybody dreamed of somebody being at the foot of the bed, or everybody knew something this, it was just, or I had a really good imagination when I was astral viewing, I just figured it was a really good, I just imagined it. That's what it was. But I'm finding out that's not what it was. So how do you guys feel that your families helped or delayed your actual awakening of what your things? And do you want to start again?
No, pick someone else.
All right, we'll pick Joan. She was in the middle.
Okay. I think my grandmother, who had dinner with us every night, she was gifted in some ways, and my mom too. My mom she had wonderful dreams. We'd listen to them every morning before school, and sometimes they'd come true. And we were all my mom and grandmother and two sisters. We were pretty connected, but there wasn't a lot of talk of the actual, psychic stuff. And I do remember one time where, I grew up Catholic and mom was talking to some nun that came in to do a summer program. And she was saying, oh yeah, Joan, I can just tell that she's really deep into this because she just sits there and I can just tell that she's connecting with all of the spiritual ideas. And mom and dad just laughed about that afterwards because my nickname was the dreamer and, that I was just kind of checked out or whatever. So it was just kind of treated as, oh no, she's just out in the ozone somewhere and all of that. But yeah, so I don't think it was discussed. I never got, it wasn't discussed outright, but then on the other hand, I was never teased or made to feel small, big, or, I felt okay saying, I saw a ghost last night. And then, oh, honey, that's too bad. That must have been scary. So it wasn't a big deal. Or I wasn't, oh, you're evil for seeing those things.
So they just let you be you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was okay. It wasn't encouragement, but it wasn't discouragement.
That's great. Who wants to go next? Jean.
So with me, my childhood, it's really nothing was ever apparent or said or, brought up. It was known that psychics and mediums were out there and we were fascinated by the concept, but we never thought any of us would ever have any of these feelings. And if we ever did, it was, luck or coincidence or, just lucky guess kind of thing. But when I was in my 20s and I did see a ghost in my house, the reaction from my family was a little bit more like, is she having a nervous breakdown? Because is she seeing things that aren't really there? It was easier for them to believe, which, I don't blame them. That's just the way that society is sometimes. It was easier for them to believe that there was something wrong with me rather than them believe that there was an actual ghost in my house and I actually saw it. That was so foreign to them. So it's so important that we're here now today talking about all of this and helping the next generation to talk to their children and their families and their siblings to talk about this and to normalize it and to let them know it can happen to anybody. And we all are psychic. We all have these abilities. It just matters how much we concentrate on them and focus on them and develop them. So, and it's always been just a calling for me. It's really been pulling to me. So there was something in it that really drew me all my life. So but my family, I mean, they're open to it now. Now that I'm out on YouTube and things and have done readings and validations and things like this. They're very supportive and 100% believe that, obviously that what I'm doing is for real. So, but that believability of other people is beyond our control. And we, can only feel, blessed to have their support. Cool. How about you, Terry Lee?
All right. My family played a huge part in me reaching where I am now, but not in the way you would think. But I had a very dysfunctional family. My father was an alcoholic and my mother was very, very spiritual and religious. And so as a young child, going to church was my safe place, right? So I was big into it. I mean, I didn't miss a Sunday school class, and I studied and memorized all my verses, and I would sing. They would do a lot of singing for the church, and was really, really into it. It was an understanding, I think, that I had at a young age. I remember my sister talking to me about, well, do you know what eternity is? And I remember I was like 4 years old or something. And I go, yeah, it's like a ring. It's like a ring. And she was like, whoa, yeah, that's so. I began to show signs to my family, but of course it was within those boundaries, right? And then as I got older, I began to see some some things I knew as a child just didn't make sense to me in the way this particular church we were going to was. And so I began to start to have knowledge. I began to hear things and know things inside me that were different than what I was being told. And eventually it grew to the point where I, had to have a talk, and it was a gentle talk with my mom and just say, I don't really believe in hell. I don't think it exists. And that upset her very much and upset my sister and everybody in the family. But, later on, it just sort of smoothed over because there was love involved, And so love kind of paved the way. And I just would only give little tiny bits of information to my mom and my family about what I was doing. But in this time, I think when I began to speak out for myself of how I felt and what I knew, that's when things really started coming in. And I started to have clairaudience, and I did channeled writings, and those kind of things began to develop after I took that step forward and said, oh, this is what I really know to be true. So they did play a huge role in all of their individual ways, and my mother was a very forgiving and loving person, and she was cherished by everyone that knew her. So there was so much I learned from her, and from my father, I got a love for nature and understanding of animals and the earth. He was very connected to the earth, so I gained a lot from him as well. There you have it. That's it.
That's awesome. Well, I can't say that I had any gifts like that growing up, but my family was pretty open. I had a sister, I was her mini me. She was 9 years older than me, and she was fascinated by psychics and mediums. So we used to go to the cat lady medium, the local cat lady medium. I guess I was probably junior high school, but she kind of scared me. It was a little bit strange, but my father was into past life regression. He was a hypnotist and did that. They were both Rosicrucians, so they were very open to alternative religions and such. I grew up Episcopalian, but it was, you went to church sometimes you didn't. It was pretty erratic. And really, the only thing I got from religion was that in the lower schools when we were children, it was all about Jesus and love and peace and all of that. And then you go to the big church and it's totally different. It's all about hellfire and damnation. And so I pretty much cut off the church about the time I was confirmed in the church. And that was the last of it for me. And then I went, and I was still very interested in the spirituality of it. And I studied religions of the world in college, and realized they all pretty much say the same thing. Love is the answer. And I don't need a building for that. I don't need a church for that. So I really moved way away. But my gifts didn't open up until COVID. Literally.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was during shutdown that my gifts opened up and
We actually
exploded.
saw things for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Jane, could you look through? There were some comments about things that other people had experienced. It's a lot like ours. Could you find a few to put through?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
So Janet P says, my family never discussed, but we lived in a small town. Yeah. Small
Makes a
towns.
difference.
Mhm, mhm. And I see she also says, I found out from the community and not her family. Her great grandmother on her mom's side was a faith healer, and her dad's mom was a medium. Wow, Janet.
That's
Oh
pretty
my
cool.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, it's amazing why some people won't tell us these things. Wow. Well, I'm
It
glad that
just
you
wasn't
did find.
acceptable, was it? It just wasn't acceptable back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
it was liars and cheats that were mediums, psychic
Right.
mediums. It was
They,
all
Oh,
they
yeah.
fake.
all had a trick.
Yeah, it was all fake.
Yeah.
They were just reading you or blah, 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 all that nonsense.
And Kelly says her mom just played along with her and told her when she told her about the people she saw in her room.
Mm.
That's like my mom
Yeah.
when I used to talk about somebody who'd come in and visit.
Hmm. And Miss Mims says, "What a long way we've come." Absolutely.
Thank God.
Yes.
Hmm. Lark says, "I remember telling my mom that one of her friends had black around them, and I barely remember this. Instead of understanding immediately, take me to the church and try to get the demons out of me." Oh no, Lark.
Oh.
And he was seeing her aura, right? He was seeing
Yeah.
that she was ill or close to.
Yeah, ill, I would
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So, and Jessica said, "I cried all the time watching movies as kids." This is back when we were talking about empathy,
Yeah.
and I was teased by my brothers because of it.
Yeah.
Aw,
That sounds
that's-
about right.
Yeah, I think I was probably teased by my brothers too.
And
They like
Carolyn,
all the war movies.
I literally skipped pages of Bambi when reading it as a kid because I couldn't take the mother's death.
I'm
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
you.
I'm with
I'm
you,
with you.
Carolyn. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even show the movie to my daughter when she was little. I couldn't play that or Old Yeller.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tear you apart.
Thank you so much. Yes. And this
Ginny
one,
says, "My dad and I had a strong psychic bond." Wow, much to my mother's dismay. Interesting.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's stories there.
that's kind of
Mhm.
like me and my mom and my dad didn't like it, but there was nothing we could do. So,
Oh, my daughter and I, we had a connection from the time
Mhm.
she was little. She would walk in my room. I'd be thinking about her for some. She'd come in my room and go, "What do you want?" It happened all the time,
yeah.
all the
Ooh.
time. And if
Yeah.
she got in trouble, I could hear her calling my name in my head. So I had forgotten all about those things. Yeah.
It's,
And
it's
she says her gift hasn't started. It started way back then. Go ahead, Joan.
Oh, in my family, especially among the girls, it was hard to keep a secret. I think I told the story once about how my husband proposed, and my mom and I had a lunch date the next day. And I wasn't going to tell her because we were going to wait and go down on the weekend to tell my parents together. And she kept just saying, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" And and she was just clearly knew something was up. And she said, "And your sister Ann called today, and she kept said, 'What's up with Joan?'" Because I'd been up all night going, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And so they picked up on the vibe, and I had to finally tell her because she was just, when I told her, she said, "Oh, I knew you." Yes, she was, and she said, "I knew you guys would do it sometime, but I thought something horrible had happened to you." So, anyhow, it's hard to keep secrets when you're connected.
That's for sure.
And I was going to say, they list, like I said, several ways to help you awaken your hidden power. Like, be more real, be your authentic self, because that will help bring out and heighten your skills.
Wow.
Makes sense.
And there's nothing more powerful than your own authentic truth.
Wow.
So
That's
that
just
helps.
just what Terry was talking about. Once you,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, good for you.
And they said another way that help bring out your gifts is don't judge anymore,
Yeah.
because judge will weaken your power. Any
Mhm.
kind of judgment weakens and brings down your vibration. So
Oh, yeah.
don't judge. The less you do, the more energies that you feel. So the idea is
Interesting.
just saying don't judge. Judgment creates separation. And there was a course in miracles, and it said the ego cannot survive without judgment. The ego seeks to divide and separate. Spirit seeks to unify and heal. Though judgment may be our default, unity is our truth.
Oh,
And
that's
the
beautiful.
moment we release judgment, unity is restored. And if we are in unity with all the world, we're going to hear the messages they're sending us. And then they're also saying, remember, your presence is power. I know I think all of you do. You do a short meditation before you start
Yes.
because you're trying to get
Hmm.
it's a prayer or something to get yourself focused because you want your highest presence
Yes.
there before you start. And they're saying do that and that will also help. So
Yes.
you're already doing that. Um, and then you want to access your power for others. You may have your power, but use it for somebody who has nothing. You want to help other people, and that's part of what it does.
Being in service to others. That's what we all want to
Exactly.
do. That's why we're all doing what we're doing, for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
they're talking about it being a radical action, doing that. It instantly reminds you of how powerful you really are, if you have forgotten. And it reinforces the essential idea that your power is best used to lift others up in the world.
Mhm.
And you all do that when you're doing psychic, you're trying to help somebody. So that's cool. And then above all, shine. Be who you are. Use your
Shine your
powers.
light. I like
Shine it out. We've been told to turn down our powers. There was a poem I read once, and I will read it again. And it's so true. We need to shine. But this poem says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous?
so true.
Actually, who are you not to be? Why aren't you? Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. You
Yes.
need to be you. Shine.
Lovely, Heather.
Okay.
I love that.
I love that.
Now,
That's a-
if we think we have a gift, this one's up for everybody. What do we do? How do we make it better? I mean, there are classes, but sometimes that's hard to find. And usually they cost money. But how do we help each other find our gifts and build them?
Practice.
Mhm.
Practice, practice.
Okay.
Practice, and more practice.
Practice.
Just remember that your energy has far more power than you think.
Absolutely.
So, what else besides practice would anybody say that somebody needs to do?
Find a community, a non-judgmental community that you can practice in.
Like this
Yes.
one. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
I like
really
that.
helps.
Practice understanding ourselves as magnificent mirrors of source and spirit. That was Mrs. Min.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Research.
Absolutely.
Research too.
I am a huge, like, whenever I get an interest, I just get everything I can get in books and literature. And, there are plenty of really excellent books out there. One I can suggest is You Are Psychic by Deborah Katz. It was one of the very first ones I started to read during the time I was starting to take classes, and just some really simple, wonderful, well-written ideas to guide you along the way as you expand and grow, because you will. Because once that desire hits and once your intention hits, then keep your eyes out for a book that appeals to you, or perhaps a show that you can listen to where someone can share an experience. All kinds of things are available to you, but
That's
research,
true.
great.
That's very true. Meditation. I'm big on the meditation.
yeah.
Quiet your mind. Let the thoughts in. Let the information in. If
And-
you can't quiet your mind, you're not going to hear anything.
And Joan had said something about finding the people around you that are like you. There are so many good reasons for doing that.
Yeah.
Because that way you realize the skills that you are developing, because they recognize them too. Otherwise, you're still kind of like in the dark ages. Nobody's confirming what you're thinking. You need to have the people help confirm it.
No, you do. You've got to have
Yeah.
people, like-minded people around you.
Yes.
Really, really helps.
What
It
really
does.
helped me as well is this isn't the pretty part, but working on my own issues, my own things. We all have things, we all have challenges, we all have weaknesses, we all have fears. And for me to face these things, look at them head on, examine them, uncover them, and gain a new perspective in a spiritual sense, and let them go, let go of the hostility and the holding somebody else accountable for something that they did against you, and having that
Forgiveness.
feeling that you can't get by, and walking around in a hurt feeling. That's not a high vibrational feeling, but it's very important to do your own work and to work through your own issues. It's
The
very
shadow work.
difficult,
Right.
but it is really what released me and allowed me to have the perspective and the vibration to move into this practice. It's vital, and it's
It is
Right.
continuous.
vital.
And if you don't do it, you're not able to raise your vibration up
That's true.
to what you need it to be to do the work.
That's
Mhm.
true.
Mhm.
I think shadow work was a huge part of what we were doing during COVID, during the shutdown.
Right.
Tons and tons of shadow work. And that's the only way that you can really, like you say, raise your vibration
Right.
and open up to the gifts.
Mhm.
It's a healing process for
It is.
yourself, and this is what I feel as though when I did my shamanic training for 3 years, it enabled us to look into ourselves and write down our own issues and write down our own processes, and take the shamanic way of healing and practice on ourselves and on each other. And this enabled me to let go of so much and to realize so much and to gain a new perspective. But it took me 3 years. I mean, but it's a process. It's a long
An
process.
ongoing process. Just because it's the original took you 3 years, you're still working on it. You still.
Oh yeah.
It
And I
will
don't know
never
if you guys
stop.
have noticed with this eclipse energy, all the stuff
Yes.
coming up. I've had tons of endings in the last week. Just things that have popped up from many years ago, including my ex-husband dying this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Another closure.
Mhm.
I'm just the bizarre things that are still happening. So I don't think you're ever over it, you guys. We all have things that continue to pop up,
Right.
no matter
I-
how far we think we've come.
Yeah.
There's always something else going to get you if you're not paying attention.
And if
I
you
do
think
really feel like the more you do shadow work, the more comfortable you become with it.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Or you'll
not as
approach
heart
something and
wrenching.
just stop in your tracks and then go, okay, I need to spend a
Yeah,
little
I
time
have
to really
found
work
this
on this. Yeah.
this bit that I'm going through right now has been much easier than what I went through 2 or 3 years ago when we were going through all that.
Oh yeah.
My perspective has changed, matured,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so things don't knock me for a loop near as much.
Yeah, and
That's,
you
that's
think
the
you're done,
reward.
and something else
That's the reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I
So
also would say that after that, that leads to the importance of gratitude, because when you are working on your gifts or doing shadow work or just waking up in the morning and feeling a little off, immediately focusing in on that gratitude raises your vibration. It really, really does. Singing, dancing, laughing, joy that comes from a spiritual journey that you're focusing on and developing.
Yeah. Yeah. Gratitude's a big one for me. I try to live in gratitude for everything I have because I feel very fortunate. And I've been down. I've been to where I didn't have anything, and I've been where I've had everything. And life is all changes, and you have to remember to be in gratitude. Otherwise, you're always looking for the next thing.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
something else. I'll be happy when. I'll be happy
Yes.
when. I'll be happy when. And
Mhm.
that nobody's ever happy doing that. You have to be happy where you are.
Mhm.
and that also helps you with the gifts as they appear. Actually, don't forget to believe in yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because Heather, you were talking about judgment before and
Mhm.
self judgment. is an
Right.
acid too. It's just
It is.
corrosive.
Yeah, you especially can't judge yourself.
Yeah,
And we're the
That-
hardest on us.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
what I
think
continue
anybody's
to work
harder
on.
on me than myself, for sure. And I'm
Yeah.
sure everybody else is like that too.
Yeah,
Loving yourself can really intensify your understanding of the soul that you are, that you're here for a purpose. And, like I always say at the end of my show, you are loved beyond measure. I mean, you are such an integral part of the cosmic consciousness. That just lifts you up and helps me shake away all of that critique that I get in my mind of myself. And it helps me to remember that I'm created by a loving God who still loves me and still is involved in my life. And I'm on an amazing journey, really.
Yeah.
So,
And it doesn't matter when you begin to notice that you may have this gift. Or if you remember, oh, in childhood you did something, but you hadn't realized it was a gift. It doesn't matter when,
Yeah.
because it will come out
Mhm.
at some time. And then you need to go ahead and do the work that you need to help it develop.
Right.
yeah. Welcome it.
Yes. Embrace it.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely embrace it.
I love this one from Lark. Yeah, we're definitely not in elementary school any longer.
Nope.
Right. But everybody's they're all with us in this. They know what we're doing, and they know the answers as well.
Yes.
Exactly.
Beautiful, Suzanne.
Mhm. Okay, I know that we're a little short, but what I was going to say is that real spiritual power does not come from within or a desire, but is the direct expression of an aspect of the divine. And as such, it carries a force and focus that belong to the absolute. And it also has the stamp of the divine will in it. So, through spiritual power, the will of absolute can be directed to an act in the world so that everybody benefits. So, we're just fortunate that we have recognized some of the gifts that we have. And I'll bet you all have more. You're just focusing on the one that you want to work with. And you're all
Yeah.
very good at them.
Yeah, it
We-
seems the more we work with them, the more they get, the more they come in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there's and all of the community here that watches the spiritual topics in the shows and all of our shows and the readings and things. You all have an awareness, and this is a self-awareness and then a global awareness, and the awareness throughout humanity. And this awareness also is I think an ability, because there are people who are not aware. And I think that when they are not aware, it's what they call they're sleeping or something, or they just don't have the awareness that their soul is in this human body, and this human body is
Yes.
carrying a divine piece of themselves that is
Mhm.
just for this experience. And this awareness is a gift in itself. It's an ability. It's an opening. It's you have this gift. So it doesn't have to be that you can, picture or tell numbers or see somebody's mother. It doesn't have to be all that. Just the awareness, the perspective, the honor and the humbleness, and the, just the reverence and that you feel in your heart is your gift. We all have these abilities, and don't compare yourself to other people who may be able to put their face on YouTube and tell you, about your pet or your loved one who is crossed. It doesn't matter what it looks like or what package it comes in. We all have these beautiful abilities, and we all have this awareness, and we all can share this with others and help to raise the vibration of humanity.
Mhm.
Yeah, just because you're not the most famous psychic on the planet doesn't mean that your awareness isn't just as valuable.
And I
Exactly.
want to repeat what's been said to me often. We are all where we belong at this moment. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if somebody else is at a different point. They're where they belong. You're
Well,
where you belong.
our society's so competitive. Oh, she can do that. I can't. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's nonsense. The competitiveness needs to go out because that's
Everybody-
really judgment. It's
Yeah.
my book.
As it is
Yes.
part of judgment. And everybody is where they belong at that moment.
Absolutely. And I really feel like not being attached to the way things have to be or the outcome of what you're doing is really super important. The more you just expand your imagination and your creativity and your love for the creator and all the souls that are on this planet at this time, the more you expand that. And like when we all read differently, and not
Yep.
every soul comes in the same way.
Oh, that's for sure.
Exactly.
One soul will come in and you'll be able to see what they're wearing and hear clearly what they're saying. Another one will come in and just be a little more quiet and might show you a scene or something to relate. We don't have to have the exact kind of validation. And I will say this because as a young girl, I watched tons of psychics. I loved it. I was always fascinated by it. But there was a particular pattern that they would use. They were seemingly schooled kind of in the same way, but there was a particular pattern like they'd say, someone with the name that begins with J. And then they would go on, and it was a set pattern. I don't see that anymore
No,
anywhere.
you don't.
And I love it. I love it because everybody's got their own beautiful.
Everybody's different the way they read it. It's fascinating to watch, like the four of you, and the four of you get together and read, and watching the different ways that you all get your messages is just phenomenal. And yet they always kind of come out the same thing.
And even if they don't appear to be the same, you come from different directions, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because the messages that are coming out from you are the messages that need to come out from you.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I love it.
This is beautiful. Divine time. I accept it, honor it, I appreciate it. I think that's beautiful, Lark.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I was just going to mention too about how it's important to remember that we are all one. We are all connected and just different manifestations of the same source.
Exactly.
And when you look at, and it makes me very excited that, to be part of this whole community, which is the representation of even more people who are waking up to this concept, that idea of unity is growing and helping raise the overall vibration of the planet. And it can be as more or even more powerful than we've seen what the power of division has done over the last
few years. Yes.
Yes. And how caustic that is, and how it just, it's not good for anybody, really. So it's really nice to see and just keep affirming for each other that we are all one. We are all connected. And there's beauty in every individual expression of source. But we are all connected, and that can make us respond differently to specific situations. If somebody's giving you a hard time and you think about, well, what happened to him that made him respond that way, rather than digging in and going, well, I'm going to say this back to you. Rather than fueling the fire, you can maybe have a little more compassion or understanding.
Compassion with boundaries.
Yes.
Sometimes I think people go, oh yeah, you just need to let it be whatever they want to do. But that's not right. You need to have boundaries for yourself. They are who they are, but you need to be respectful of your boundaries and have other people be respectful of your boundaries as well. Otherwise you're just.
And I love Spirit Watcher Suzanne. We're all basically a work in progress.
Oh yes.
Yes, we are indeed.
We just keep going. We think we're done. No, there's more.
There's no done.
Oh, this is a sweet one. Miss Mims, you are so kind.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you to all of you wonderful, gentle, loving souls. Thank you for giving us this chance to be together today.
That's beautiful.
Count your blessings. We never know what tomorrow might bring.
No, you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And thank you, all you loving souls that are watching this. and participating in this. We certainly appreciate it. And we know that you guys are open and willing to learn just like we are.
Yes.
And that's the beautiful thing about this community.
Mhm.
So
And-
much love out there.
And thank you all for your expertise and your differences and likenesses.
And being part of our wisdom circle. This is
Exactly.
just so interesting to hear different people's how they grew up, what their lifestyles were like when
Mhm.
their kids came on board. That's pretty amazing. Jean's going to be our next presenter. And Jean, would you like to tell people what you're going to be doing next month? In
I will
June?
be doing my talk on demystifying spiritual symbols.
I
A
think
spiritual
that's,
symbolism. Yes.
I
Mhm.
think that's going to be fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for that.
That's going to be great.
Looking
No
forward to
pressure.
it.
I've got a tough act to follow, you guys.
Oh, and I just
Oh,
want to
no.
say thank you, Heather, for laying this
Yes.
out, beautiful session out for us today.
Yeah.
It was
Well, thank you all for
Yeah.
helping with everything that you guys do.
Yeah.
I was counting on you.
I think we can count on each
And
other.
you all came through.
Of course.
Yay.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Thanks
Thank you.
everybody in the chat room. We so appreciate you being here.
Yes.
And I hope you'll join us again in June. I don't know the date, but it'll be Miss SunPsychic Jean. And that'll be great. And until then, we love you. Go out and shine your light.
On everyone else as well as yourself.
Exactly.
Yes.
But most assuredly on yourself.
Yes.
Because we need it probably more than anybody. We're so busy giving it to everyone else, we forget ourselves. So
The
Yes.
first Monday of every month, you guys. I think it's June 5th. So thank you
Okay.
very much, Crone Zone, for hosting this amazing series for us. And Joan and Terry Lee, my honor to be with you ladies as well.
always an honor
It
to
was
be with
lovely.
you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right,
Lovely.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Love you all.
Thank
Bye
you
now.
so much.